Think about you want to train someone to replace you. And that's what you're going to put in your info product. That is the mindset that I have with everything. And that is the best way to create an information product.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gumroad podcast. I'm your host, Justin Michaelet, a senior writer at Gumroad, where I deconstruct the tactics, strategies, and processes of top creators. Each week on the podcast, I interview creators and digital entrepreneurs who are at the top of their field. On this week's episode, I interviewed the Wall Street Journal best-selling ghostwriter Joshua Lisec. Joshua and I talked about his process for creating emotionally compelling calls to action, how he's ghostwritten 62 books, how he can write blog posts in 10 minutes, and the do's and don'ts of what he calls epic persuasion. This was a great conversation. Enjoy. Our guest today on the podcast is Joshua Lisec, a renowned and certified ghostwriter who has written for some of the best writers in the world. And I am pleased to have you here, Joshua. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks, Justin. I'm pretty stoked to be here with you as well.
Awesome. You're a huge success on Gumroad. You've got a half dozen products. And I want to get into your process a little bit. We're fellow writers. We're also from Ohio as well. So it's good to commiserate with you about the pain of writing. So just tell us about how you got started on Gumroad in particular. And was that an offshoot of your writing for a decade before that?
Yes, it was. As a ghostwriter, I regularly write everything from 300-page books on down to 300-word blog posts, a little bit of everything in between. Although nowadays, I'm mostly concentrated on your full-length general trade nonfiction books. That said, over the years, for both article clients, ghostwriting a TED or TEDx talk speech, or even sales emails for a client, when I've sat down with someone and gone through their process of what it is that they want to sell, what the benefits of it are, what the features are, what are the unique advantages of it, I will help them craft headlines, frankly, everything from headlines on down to the contents of the information and product itself. And I've heard clients regularly say something to the effect of, Joshua, that was the best way to say it, what you wrote there. It felt like it was me, it was my voice, but that's how I should have said it. So I'm glad that I hired you. I've been hearing that for over 10 years now. Then something interesting happened last summer. I had a potential client reach out to me. They said, Joshua, I hired a copywriting team from one of the popular freelance websites to regularly write authority-building, search engine optimized articles for our pharmaceuticals company. And they are so bad that it took us more time to rewrite the articles than it did for me to write one from scratch. This is the company representative telling me this. They said, I'm not sure if we can afford you. So how would you feel about putting together some type of a training program that teaches terrible copywriters like the ones that we've been hiring how to actually write well? And then we can have our writing team go through it. And I thought, oh, okay, sure. And I thought, what better thing to call it than the feedback I've been getting from clients for 10 years now? Call it the best way to say it, and teach writing the way that I approach writing projects. Because writer's block is a thing, ghostwriter's block is not. And the reason why ghostwriter's block is not a thing, because we always have something to start with. We're not just staring at the blank page and making stuff up for clients and assigning their name to it. So what I want to do is I wanted to teach the ghostwriter's process for creating emotionally compelling calls to actions amid your content the same way that I do it. And so what I did is I recorded myself working on articles, sales pages, emails, chapters, so people could see live my process and explain why I'm doing what I'm doing versus here's a writing course, slideshow, bullet points, theory, which doesn't help anyone improve their writing at all. Funny thing happened. I released the course. The pharmaceutical company takes it and they reach back out to me and say, I don't care how expensive you are, Joshua, you're hired.
Oh my goodness. So I love the idea of ghostwriters not having writer's block, because there is something to start with. But often you might find that your clients don't really know what they want to say. So are you helping them think in the process of your writing, or do they come to you with a pretty clear vision most of the time?
Most of the time that they want to write, but they're not quite sure what they want to say. And it's not because they don't have anything to say. It's because they have everything to say. And they're not sure, where do I start? How do I make it flow? What's the best order of ideas? What do I not write about? And that's everything from 500-word blog post on up to the Bible of their personal brand.
How long does it take you to draft a 500-word blog post at this time? Because, I'm a writer as well, a former speech writer, and it takes a while to inhabit someone's brain. And it takes a pretty deep emotional commitment to that process. It's sort of an intense thing to do. So I imagine you're incredibly efficient. It seems like your output is just insane these days.
Yes.
Over time. So you must have broken the code to channel somebody very rapidly and produce content in their voice and in their brand guidelines.
Yes. Now, if I'm writing a blog article, 500 words for myself, that's 10, 15 minutes. Because I get into the flow state very, very, very quickly, and I stay there and I get it done. For clients, it is significantly longer because I want to use as many of their original words as possible. So when I'm interviewing someone, I'm applying the template of the appropriate structure. That's one of the great things is that I offer is not just tell me what you want to write and then I'll make that into something. I bring a structure depending on what their objective is. So if you want to write a memoir, that's a very different structure than if you're writing, let's say, a pop psychology book. And so I bring the structure of that book into the conversation. So we're only talking about the things that pertain to what should be in the book or in the article. That said, though, I still record our conversations and I go back through the transcripts and I'm looking for unique wording, unique metaphors, adverbs that they use, turns of the phrase, the way that indicates that they have a unique way of expressing this idea. So I can repurpose as much of that author voice verbatim as possible into the text that it is that I'm writing for them, while also finding out, okay, what are the gaps in meaning, content, transitions? Is there a hook that's missing? This corresponds to the brain dump part of the best way to say it process, where the client is giving me their brain dump. And it's my job to, rather than me doing the brain dump, but then I still have to follow the best way to say it process steps 3 and 4 of restructure everything so it's all in the right order, where everything that is said, it's in the same place. If there's a topic, if there's 3 topics in the blog post, for example, then there need to be 3 sections. Not talk about this point and then talk about something else and then go back to it again later, which is how it looks in the transcript, because that's how conversation goes. Nope, I got to put it all in the same place. And what's missing? We have 3 topics, but we have 300 words for 2 of them and 50 words for 1 of them. Well, I need to expand that part of the structure, then, don't I? And I then do that using their ideas, their word choices, maybe additional research as needed to make it look like it's ready for prime time and it meets my own standards. And then I refine it looking for is there a better metaphor to use here? Do we have more than 3 prepositions in a single sentence? That sort of thing. So that it is the best way to say what they wanted to say.
So let me ask this then. It seems like you have no problem getting into flow state, but many other people do, even many other successful creators.
Yes.
What do you think holds people back from being good at that themselves? In other words, why are they hiring a ghostwriter in the first place? And I know people write better as a team. They write better when they collaborate with others who are helping them think.
Yes.
But what makes it so difficult for people to write good copy and to create products, whether they're a corporation or an individual?
I think it's because they're different skill sets and also different time investments. You can have in a 5-10 minute period, the realization, the epiphany, the aha moment for your product or your book topic or whatever it is that you will be writing about. And that is the brilliance that was needed. However, it is hours and hours and hours and hours of a slog through writing the copy about that breakthrough idea that you've just had. And so for lot of my clients, it's the time, it's the hours and hours and hours that they don't have. They don't have. So what I ask for my clients is an hour a week of their time, as opposed to 2 to 3 hours a day if they're writing their book themselves for months. And it becomes a massive difference in the time investment. Now, there are some people that they do have that free time. Maybe they're empty nesters, or the kids are later in high school or in college, or they've been able to delegate some of their tasks of their jobs. They're now working 25, 30 hours a week. So they got a little bit of additional time, but they still want to have it be the best way to say it. So people in that situation, I come alongside them as their real-time editor, where they'll work on a chapter and then I will make adjustments, corrections, and fixes to it, and then send it back to them and say, let's pay attention to these things next time. Or we'll even have live edits inside of our interviews together, our weekly conversations with them. So really it is about what is it that you're able to put into this, more money or more time.
Got you. That's a great explanation. It makes perfect sense. Just a follow-up question for you. Do you have a process for how you get to the headline? What's the big idea, the biggest of the big ideas, if you will?
Yeah. The big idea, capital T, B, and I for the big idea. That is the starting point of the best way to say it process for writing or for ghostwriting. What is that one point that you want to get across versus I want to talk about X. So then you just dump everything you know about X on the page. And there's not really a big idea. It's just a bunch of really tiny, insignificant, obscure ideas on that process. So for the big idea, which will often be the headline, is what one thing do you want people to remember from this? That one question will be extremely helpful. What do I want people taking away from this? What I want them to remember after they've read this, and then write that out. And then the topic of your chapter or your article, even your sales page, is now going to be present. And then you can tweak the wording, usually shorten it, simplify it using simpler words. And then you can pick any product or any service and ask, what do I want people to take away? What do I want people to remember having read my sales page? And then that should be your headline.
Do you start with an emotion first? Oftentimes marrying an emotion with a concept, an idea, is sort of the art, the upfront art that you have to master. But do you start there? Or is it more of like, what's the substantive idea up front and then later sort of comes in the emotion?
I found that emotion works best when paired with function. And a way that I like to explain that is features and benefits. Many of us have heard of features and benefits. You don't just talk about the features, you got to spell out the benefits. Focus on benefits, not features. Benefits greater than features. That is false. In my experience. And the reason why is particularly in any type of coaching or consulting work, and also in copywriting, particularly in the online marketing and personal development spaces, like from life coaches to ClickFunnels, people who use that software. An overemphasis, an overutilization of benefits looks like a scam. You're going to get, fit, happy, sexy, rich. When am I buying again?
Exactly. Yeah. Interesting.
And that same phenomenon of you hired a really effective copywriter who knows absolutely nothing about your product, but they know what your customers want. So then they kind of invent the value of your product on the sales page. And then the real life alternative has nothing to do with that at all. You'll find some of the best internet marketers are absolutely skilled at that, where they will take what you could easily find on a Wikipedia page. For example, pick a topic like search engine optimization. You could take the Wikipedia page of search engine optimization, record it in 1080p or 4K, you talking about those exact same concepts. And you could come up with benefits-laced bullets about all of that same information. Add nothing to it and sell it for $997. That's most information products. That's most books. That's most courses right there. The Wikipedia version of it was better because it was free.
By the way, I have a question for you about your process. So your answer might be counterintuitive, or certainly not how I do it. Seems like you can resolve what the big idea is or the headline before the writing really begins, whereas a lot of people will discover the headline 60% of the way into the process.
Do you find yourself doing it the former or the latter?
The former, where you start with a big idea, I found is much more efficient and effective, because it's efficient because you're not wasting time trying to get to what it is that you're talking about. And it's effective because when you know the one thing it is you're going to talk about in the book, and then filtered on down to each chapter or even each section, you spend all of your creative, you spend your creative energy, so to speak, that limited creative energy, you spend it wisely. You invest it writing about and thinking about the one thing you're discussing, as opposed to investing it in a bunch of things that you probably won't even be writing about, or that just take you in a direction that readers don't care.
You've probably written with hundreds of people, I would say. And tell me some stories about that. Is there a collaborative writing process that you find to be super efficient? And are there any practical, concrete things that you've discovered to write well with other people?
Yeah, writing well with other people. What I found is it's so easy to co-write, even if I'm the ghostwriter and it's their name that's on top of it, right? When we agree on the structure. So what's this book about? What is the opening hook? I have extremely detailed outlines. Some of my outlines are 45 pages long for a book, because we're getting down to the granular level of detail. What story comes first? What are the details of that story? And when I interview them, it's not, tell me about a time when X. That is a horrible question. Versus, chapter 2, this is going to be the opening story. You told me a little bit about it. I need some additional details. What age were you and what was the location? That's going to be pertinent for the story. We cannot miscommunicate about the answer to that question. So The more specific the questions are, before any writing is being done, the more likely it is that they're going to like it. And all they're going to have as feedback are a couple of comments. They want to add a scene, or there was a detail that wasn't quite right, and they spend 2 minutes changing it, and we're good to go.
There is something magic that happens in conversation with people, where when they're not writing, they can say things that are potentially even more interesting, because it just comes off with common plain English. And listening to a person unspool on a topic and a sentiment, and then transcribing it and reordering it, just as you said, it seems to be incredibly effective and time efficient as a way of creating products.
It can be. Although often the problem is when we are free thinking out loud, we use a lot of adverbs. We use conceptual, abstract speech that does not provide nearly enough detail, vivid description, or visuals that we need to appropriately grasp the topic. This is why companies that interview authors tweak the transcript, assign it chapters, and call it a book, provide demonstrably inferior products. It's because it's not a book. It's a transcript. And you can tell it's a transcript. What with all the abstract language and the adverbs everywhere. So what I found is that in my process, and when I've got the transcript, yes, it's their core ideas. But if they say something like, we reached a new level of success in the company, if I was a transcription to book chapter service, I would leave it at that. But that is awful. That communicates absolutely no understanding of level of success. What was your previous level of success? How do you define levels of? What is a level of? You just have so many questions from that one little thing. It makes the person sound like an idiot when you're reading it in print. And if you're going to invest in a ghostwriter, you want to sound like the opposite of an idiot.
That makes sense. If I could segue into your Gumroad products, roughly speaking, when did you start creating Gumroad products? What was the first one? And I want to go a little bit super practical and actually how you built it, not just the writing, but the packaging of it.
Sure thing. So the best way to say it, I launched, I believe on July 7th of 2020. I put about 2 weeks into it. 2 weeks. Because from that one question, I knew everything that needed to be in it. And that one question was, can you create something that I can have my crappy writers go through so that they will not be crappy? And I thought, well, what do they need to know in order to achieve that? I thought, well, they need to know how to write anything, communicate anything effectively in a short space with limited understanding of the topic. And I thought, well, that's most of us. That's most of us writing about anything, even our own business. So then I opened up a Google Doc and I thought about my process. And I turned the bullets on. Bullet number 1, start with the big idea. Bullet 2, after that, well, I brain dump everything I know about that topic. After I brain dump, what do? Well, bullet 3, I restructure everything. Bullet 4, after it's restructured, what do? Well, I refine it. And I refine it. And then under each of those, I put the sub bullets like A, B, and C of, well, what does it mean to refine something? What is the order that you do it? And I thought about, what if I were hiring someone to write for me? What is the Joshua Lisec standard for a good writer? Well, it's going to be this process. This is what they're going to be having to follow. And so I wrote it with that in mind. And then I took that Google Doc, I hired a designer to have them turn it into a 1-page workflow that people have printed off and taken pictures of. And they look, Joshua, I'm following the best way to say it process. It's right here by my desk. It's on my wall. It's, behind my computer. It's up by the window. And I thought the most effective way to communicate something is, especially on video, is to keep it short. So I talked through the process of the best way to say it. And I think 2 videos that are like 25 minutes long total. So it's in like less than half an hour, you get the overview of how the process works. And then there's something like 6 hours of content of me opening up a chapter or an article or an email or a sales page or a blog post and saying, we're going to now follow the best way to say it process for this brain dump of a chapter from a client, for example. And then I would record myself working on it for 25 minutes or half hour, 40 minutes or 2 hours or whatever, so people could learn why I was doing what I was doing as I was making the changes and I was writing. Basically, I was restructuring and refining steps 3 and 4, the hardest part of the process. And I did have a couple of other videos specific to how do you come up with that big idea. And there's a few tertiary trainings, like how to search engine optimize your headlines and your content and do that sort of research, little things like that. And also how to write a credibility building bio, if that's what you're brain dumping, or what's unique to blog posts, what's unique to sales pages, that sort of thing. Some additional trainings in there. But the core part of the process that changes the game for people is to see me at work, to look over my shoulder, because that allows you to get it. You get the concept and you take ownership of why Josh is doing what Josh was doing, so that you could then go and Joshua Lisec your own piece of content.
That makes perfect sense. I wonder what kind of information diet you have, and if that is super deliberate and selective in what you consume on a daily basis, and then how you capture it. What's your note-taking system? I want to ask this question to everyone that's on this podcast.
Yes. So my information diet looks like, I can't tell you the last time I watched live TV. So TV, radio, it's like it's the high carb with refined sugars and corn syrup and artificial colors and flavors version of information in your diet. So I don't do any of that. I am regularly consuming a lot just from the research I'm doing for clients. I'm learning a little about a lot every single day. So in some cases, a lot about a little, if it's a technical project. And so I'm going to credible sources, like actually credible sources and researchers. So most of what I consume is on behalf of clients, and I learn the most random information about many different topics, often before they become mainstream topics. Those are the fun ones, where I've got an industry expert who's intending for their work to go into the mainstream and into public consciousness. And what I'm working on will be known to everyone in a year. That is a fun project.
How many clients do you have at a given particular time? And how many pages would you say you refine and publish or help others publish in a given year?
So I just finished my 60th book, and I just celebrated 10 years in business. So that about tells you.
Do you have a whole team behind you now?
I have different people who I delegate different tasks to, like very, very specific tasks. So I have a team who's done several award-winning book covers for me that I create detailed book briefs for based on what I know from the book. I am the focal point of the Joshua Lisec Ghostwriting empire right now. And I want to delegate more and more, but I have been able to delegate I would say, a lot of like manual tasks and labor that have to get done for a client, but don't necessarily require me to be present there overseeing every step of the process. So that has freed up a lot of my time. I probably work half as much as I did 2 years ago, even.
I have a 2-part follow-up question, and it's on either end of the barbell. What's your origin story in getting into ghostwriting in the first place? And maybe I should have started there, and then where are you really wanting to amp this up? It seems like you have a high ambition with it.
Yeah. So where I started is I was homeschooled, preschool through 12th grade. And when you're homeschooled, you're pretty much a self-starter and a self-finisher. I would get my schoolwork done sometimes early in the school year than I was supposed to. So I had a lot of free time in my hands. I thought, why not attack the library? So I read voraciously because there's not much else to do when you're a homeschooler before the internet came along and much less high speed internet. Gosh, there was nothing to do. Play solitaire on your Windows 95 for a few minutes. Okay. So I read books, read a lot of books. I thought, well, I seem to like this. Maybe I could create this for people too. This is the thought that I had as a youngster. And I thought, well, I guess I'll become an author someday. And someday came a lot sooner than I thought. I had a 2-book publishing deal when I was 20 years old for 2 novels that I written, 2 action adventure novels and kind of like the young adult men's fiction action adventure crossover that I dubbed Indiana Jones for Millennials. And that pitch worked out quite well. Meanwhile, I'm now entering college. I'm getting feedback from professors on my writing. They're noticing that I am, frankly, better than classmates at this. And they say, Joshua, I don't know what you want to do as a career, but you should be a professional writer for hire. People can hire you to write stuff for them. What's that called? Didn't even know at the time what it was called. So fast forward a little bit. The novels are out. I'm marketing them, signing copies, taking selfies, on the old flip phones, right? We actually have to hold the flip phone back away from you and then try to wiggle your finger around to find the button and take the picture because it's selfie mode wasn't a thing yet. And 2 of my freelance writing clients at the time found out that I was writing books. They thought, well, I've wanted to write a book longer than this young man has been alive, and he did it twice. Maybe I can get his help. So 2 potential clients, or two clients at the time, I should say, that I was writing other things for. They said, Joshua, can you help me write my book? And I want it to read like it's fiction, like it's a story, just like you wrote your novels. And I said, okay, fine, sure, I'll help you with your book. And I've been saying, okay, fine, sure, I'll help you with your book ever since. So that is the one bookend. That bookend is the past. The bookend of the future is a lot less exciting. It is more so continue what I have been doing of delegating more and more inside of my business so I can take on even more projects and work even less in the business and spend even more time with my young and growing family. That's really the priority, is to continue living the ghostwriting dream, except do a lot less of the tasks that are not directly related to sitting down with the client and saying, let's find the best way to say it for your book.
Great. I wonder if you might offer, because I think our audience is people who are creators, Gumroad creators, maybe not Gumroad creators, but people who are either current or aspiring creators. And what advice would you offer them in order to start developing a portfolio of small products and then larger and larger products?
Really, I think it starts with what do people hire you to do? And then can you systematize your process as if you're going to train an employee to do it for you and you're going to pay them? That's the mindset I have with all of my products. Like, it can't just be a bunch of information because anyone can throw together an ebook for 99 cents and put it up anywhere. Think about, you want to train someone to replace you. And then that's what you're going to put in your info product. That is the mindset that I have with everything. And that is the best way to create an information product.
That makes perfect sense. Well, we like to keep these conversations really nice and efficient and information rich. And Joshua, you are a wealth of experience and knowledge. Thank you for being with us here today. And thank you for your time.
It's my pleasure, Justin. Thank you.